Dennis Wrigley Ministries, a better way, unity, renewal and healing.
How do you see the church? Especially if you live in the United Kingdom. Well, firstly, we've got to understand how people see the church in other countries. All over the continents, the church is moving forward. The church is seen as dynamic. The church is seen as growing. And the church is being persecuted. Now, the stereotype of the church in England is, I believe, alarming. The church is seen as irrelevant by many. Others see it as dull, boring, colourless. Others see its teaching as confusing. Others regard it as hypocritical. Others see it as old-fashioned, antiquated, elderly. Still others see it as negative, even judgmental. Some see it as unwelcoming. Some see it, when ministers fail, as corrupt. How do you see not just the churches, but the Church of Christ, which has existed over 2,000 years? What is your perception? Is it irrelevant? Is it unnecessary? Is it just for people with a religious bent of mind? Or is it a vital element in the world? Our perception is governed often by the environment in which we live and by the educational influences upon us. Increasingly, children are taught God doesn't exist. Increasingly, adults say, well, I believe in some kind of being, but it's impersonal. It's not he, it's it. Others believe in a God, but they believe he's distant. He's not interested in us. He's not knowable. Others have got so confused that they've just expelled God and the thought of God from their lives. They've rejected him. What are the perceptions behind which people hide? Well, they're very quick to point out that, oh yes, well, religion has been the cause of wars. Undoubtedly it has in past years, but my goodness, in the last 150 years, the root of the wars and the suffering and the concentration camps is quite clearly an atheistic root. And then you have those who say, oh, well, the church is a restraining influence on life. Thou shalt not. And yet the fact of the matter is Jesus came that we might have life and have it in all its abundance. And there are many, many churches up and down this country which are alive, vibrantly so. And then, how do they perceive Jesus? Well, they're easy with the concept that he was a good moral teacher. Was. Not is, was. They're easy with his kindness and his goodness and his mercy. And they're interested in the fact that he was used to heal. But as for believing his own claims about himself, they're very doubtful. And Jesus says, I am the bread of life. I am the way. The great I ams make people a little bit worried. And furthermore, their perceptions lead them to believe that there's an incompatibility between science and Christian belief, which is rubbish when you think of all the Christians who are involved in science today. Then they believe that Christians are withdrawing from the world. This is rubbish, because there are hundreds and hundreds of charities deeply immersed and involved in the problems of the world, which Christians lead. And so you come to the end of all the excuses. Yes, there is sin in the world. There's sin in the church, and the church is for sinners. It will never be perfect. But at the end of the day, we've got to ask ourselves, in spite of all its weaknesses, this thing we call the church has existed for centuries. You may have criticisms of it. You may be concerned about its divisions, and rightly so. But at the end of the day, God's hand is upon his people in all the centuries, as now. And from time to time in history, we're told that's wipeout. After the communist revolution with Mao Zedong and before him, people said that's the end of the church. The pastors were murdered and the churches were burnt or destroyed. And yet in China we see this huge resurgence. And the same has happened all over the world. There's a characteristic of this thing we call the church, which is immortal, eternal. And it's the characteristic of God himself. Yes, the church has got so many imperfections. Yes, the churches fail over and over again. But nonetheless, the people of God come together constantly, week by week, to affirm there is a purpose in life. There is a God. He has made us. To him we will return. There is value in life. Not a sparrow falls to the ground without the Lord knowing it. This is the vitality of the church. The church is a means of God showing his love to a broken, hurting world, to broken and hurting people. The time has come in the United Kingdom to reconsider how people view the church, how they see us, and to be honest enough to admit that we all fall short of the glory of God. So let the church not bring in a new public relations organization. Let not the church try to create a false image. Let us recognize our need to walk more closely together as one. Let us recognize the need to go out and evangelize and to welcome more and more. And let us realize that we're part of a movement in which there are millions and millions of people faithfully walking and serving. Yes, I believe the church is militant and triumphant, as the creeds used to say. Militant in this world, fighting the battles against darkness, triumphant in the world to come. Because God holds us in the palm of his hands. He has the victory. Let the church be seen today as hope for the hopeless, as joy for the joyless, as life for the lifeless. God bless you.
Dennis Wrigley Ministries, a better way, unity, renewal and healing. Thank you for watching.